Today, please all stand. Manto, kindly lead the prayer. Alright, good morning class. How's your morning so far? That's great. Well, before we go down to our topic, let me check your attendance first. Front seaters, kindly check your columns who are absent. Starting with row 1, column 1, and follow. Very good. Alright, 3 claps for everyone, no? Since no one is absent for today. So let's keep it inana lang until next meeting. Right now, since I already discussed injury last meeting, which among all of you here can tell me a brief insight about injury? Ruta? Alright. Injuries are any damage that is caused in our body. Now, I have mentioned the etiology of injuries. I guess it was, we have 8 etiology. Now, give me 2 causes of injuries. Matugina. Precisely. Some common examples are falls, firearm-related activities, and of course, sports-related activities. Very good. Now, I have prepared 2 photos here. And these photos, you will determine what type of injury you are going to talk about. The first one is here. And the second one is here. Now, in the first one, where does the injury being located? Correct. Obviously, it's located in the head, particularly in the skull. The second one, correct. Sa inyong palinakan sa agtang, nasa forehead. Now, these injuries are being placed in the skull and in the forehead. Now, what do you think, or which part of the body do you think these injuries are? So later, you will know. I have prepared an activity. I have blue hat and the orange hat. Each hat has illustrations which you will connect in order to formulate a conclusion. So, the blue one will be for this side, and the orange one will be for this side. I will give you 1 minute to formulate, and you will have the representative to give me just 1 word or a phrase on what is it about. Alright, now for this side, what do you think is the illustration about? Based on what you have done, when you connect ang mga photos, kung saan ka about? Brain trauma could be. How about this side? Head damage. Well, both of you are correct. For this morning, we are going to talk about head injury. Now, before we go down, let me show our learning objectives for this morning. So, at the end of the interactive discussion, the MAPI 2 students can identify head injury and its types, recognize the proper first aid for head injury, and of course, perform the first aid for head injury through our exercise paper. the scalp lacerations. Now, from the word itself, scalp, of course, it's up here. It is the most minor type of head trauma because it's just a laceration. So when we say laceration, it is just a cut in the head. But although that it is said to be the most minor, its major complication is infection. So since it is an open wound, if it gets infected, of course, it could get worsened. The next one is the skull fracture. Now, skull fracture has 4 types. We have the linear, the depressed, the comminuted, and the compound. The first one is the linear. So the linear is the break or the discontinuity of bone without alteration. Meaning to say, linear is just a piece of crack. So if it is, relate na to siya sa earthquake, no? It's just a fault line. So starting point lang na si linear. Kung asa nagsugod ka na. Second one is the depressed one. The depressed one is caused by a hard blow. So an example of that is naigo sa bula. So if ang ulo naigo sa bula o naigo sa simento ang ulo, kasi tendency, di ba mo crack? Mas worse pa, mabuak. So sa depressed one is ang linear na fracture na naghan. So nanay na purma din nga center. Mo na si depressed fracture. Next one is the comminuted. So the comminuted one is what we call the multiple linear fracture. Why is it called the multiple linear fracture? Since linear fracture is tagsa naman to siya, it is the cracks. Si comminuted is a group of multiple linear fracture. So, daghan na siya ng crack which could create two compound fracture. So, si compound fracture is what we call the depressed skull fracture and scalp laceration. Why is it called compound? Because ang head, which is na-damage na, ang head is napaha. So, napaha. So, ang head na buo pa, natagtang na din apart because of the hard blow, because of falls, any type of accidents nga, madami siyang natuang head. Also, we have brain injury. So, si brain injury is the most fatal one. Why is it the most fatal one? Dili na nato siya ma-aid. Wala na first aid. Kaya seryoso na siya. Our brain is damaged already. So, we need professional help in order to aid it. But, in brain injury, we have the major head trauma and the minor head trauma. For major head trauma, we have concussion. Concussion is a sudden transient mechanical head injury with disruption of neural activity in the LOC. So LOC meaning the loss of consciousness. That is concussion. The second one is the contusion, the bruising of the brain tissue. So this is the major one. So once the brain is being damaged, we can no longer touch it, no first aid that will be done, but to call for a medical help and the professional will do it. Now, we have here the first aid for head injury. For the head injury, we have the scalp laceration. So for scalp laceration, what is scalp laceration? Again, scalp laceration is this one. So a cut in the head. The first aid for scalp laceration is, first, wash the area of the wound. So if it is not dakong kaayo yung bisig, as much as possible, ato siyang hugasan. The second one is, find a clean cloth. Find a clean cloth para unsa? To press the injured part to stop the bleeding. Next one is, once the bleeding stops, ice the area for 20 minutes. Para unsa ang ice? In order nga ang blood is muurong siya og, okay, muurong siya og gawas. Since depressed naman natin And eyes area again for swelling to reduce. Next one is the skull fracture. Skull fracture is, of course, the damage in the skull. The skull is the one that protects our, correct, the one that protects our brain. Now, the first one is to open the dressing. Open the dressing carefully. But since our dressing is already open, okay, we will proceed to the step 2. Place the sterile pad to the injured part. So, the skull fracture is here. Now, we will press the dressing to the injury. Next one is to pass it over the ear, under the chin, and in a perpendicular manner. So, we will apply it here. And of course, i-press ihapon natin din sa injured part. Now, since the pressure is being applied here, in every rub, you must pass the bridge. Of course, in order to stop the bleeding. Now, I will pass it on the bridge. Okay, so what you can see, ito siyang sa iyahang ulo. Now, di ba diwadiri, miss, nang kinalan pa mo na siya ipasa, miss? Aron, aside nga ang pressure, mas ma-press siya, of course, mas-secure natin na dili na siya mangsa. Of course, dili magana ang moon. Now, once you have finished bandaging the head, we will use the clasp to keep the bandage together. And since wala na siya clasp, i-lock lang siya sa luyo sa head. Now, okay na si Kuya. Now, since I am done discussing the first aid, I will ask you, what is a head injury? Based on my discussion. Nababos, what is head injury? Okay, very good. Head injury is any trauma or damage that is caused in our head. Now, what are the types, the 3 types of injury that I have mentioned? It was present here. Hasmin? Good job. It is the skull laceration, the skull fracture, and of course the brain injury. Last one. What do you think are the causes of head injury? Alright, did maited no si Jean Flores? Still the same with injuries. Falls, sports-related activities, firearm-related activities. Now, I will be dividing the class into 2 groups. Each group will have 8 members. And you will prepare a 3-minute short skit. And that skit will emphasize the proper first aid for our injuries that we have discussed for today. The group who perform the accuracy of the first aid will receive 50 points. Now, you may start. Again, before I forgot, each group will have 2 members to act as the responder and the casualty. So those 2 members will carry out the others. Sila tayo mag-alsa sa uban. Are you ready? You may start. Okay, let's start with group 1. Thank you, group 1. How about group 2? Now that it is very evident that you already know the proper first aid for head injuries, we will have You shall identify the following questions, whether it is a skull laceration, a skull fracture, a concussion, contusion, or a closed head injury. Now, number 1. It is the most minor type of head trauma. It is the most minor type of head trauma. 2. This injury is composed of linear, depressed, convoluted, and compound type. Again, this injury is composed of linear, depressed, convoluted, and compound type. 3. It is a sudden, transient, mechanical head injury with the disruption of neural activity. It is the loss of consciousness. What injury is it? It is a sudden, transient, mechanical head injury with disruption of neural activity. 4th one. It is the bruising of the brain tissue within the focal area. It is the bruising of the brain tissue within the focal area. Number 5 and the last one. It is an injury which indicates a hard blow to the head from striking an object, but the object did not break the skull. Again, it is an injury which indicates a hard blow to the head from striking an object, but the object did not break the head. Okay, done? Please pass your papers in front. Okay, thank you. Now for your assignment, make a short movie that will showcase the demonstration for the basic first aid for head injury. We will have 2 groups, Group 1 and Group 2. Group 1 will have skull fracture and Group 2 will have skull laceration. You must submit your output next meeting. Now for the criteria, you will have 40% for accuracy, 30% for creativity, and of course 30% for the content